Looking for a Valentine's gift she'll truly love? 1-800-Flowers.com knows what she wants. For 50 years, 1-800-Flowers.com has helped guys get it right, delivering millions of fresh Valentine's roses nationwide with high-quality bouquets guaranteed to last. Right now, when you buy 1 dozen premium roses, they'll double your bouquet to 2 dozen for free. Valentine's is coming fast, so don't wait until the last minute. Double your blooms today at 1-800-Flowers.com/podcast. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/podcast.
Let's go.
He's Derek.
Category is shady. Woo, that's right, girl.
She's Romaine.
I am a horny lesbian. I like to have sex. If I was single, I'd be having sex.
This is Derek and Romaine.
2.0, bitches. Boop, boop. Hey, Derek.
Well, hello, Romaine. Look at us, the original town and country duo.
Oh, aren't we indeed?
I think you're country.
I'm totally country. I'm a little bit country.
You could even drop an O out of that, and it would still be Romaine. So glad to have you all with us. We are actually going to be talking town and country because we have a fabulous guest who's going to be joining us in just a couple of minutes.
Yeah, I'm excited.
A very few short minutes because we had a wonderful, entertaining interview with him already. Brian Schaefer, he is a journalist and he has a debut novel. And normally we don't have novelists on the show because it's very hard to get an entry point into a novel for people
right
who haven't read things. But he is a gay. He writes for the New York Times and the New Yorker.
And he's adorable, by the way. He's so cute.
Yeah, he's very cute.
Don't worry, Derek. I'm not going to try to hook you up with him because he's already married.
He is married.
I know. That's why I said. Otherwise, I would be like, Derek, why are you not scooping up this guy?
Look, he has a dance background. He studied dance. And
that means he has a tight ass.
Oh, Jesus.
Dancers have great asses.
Yeah, but you know what? I got to be honest. I previously dated / slept with a dancer.
Yeah.
And
didn't like it?
I don't know. Personality-wise, I don't know that they're for me. It takes to get that body, it takes a lot of dedication. And I don't know. They just I've never been a person who really romantically gelled with
dedicated people.
Dedicated people, dancers, not dedicated people.
That's kind of
look
the way
how dedicated you are, and look how well we gel.
Do we?
You're not that dedicated, girl.
I know. You don't have to tell me. I'm aware.
But he is very handsome, and I'm sure he has a rockin' bod, and he's very entertaining. We had a wonderful time. I warned him in advance. I was like, well, you won't hear much from Romaine, and you were all over that interview, Romaine.
I know. You know what? I liked him, so I tried to get engaged. I did my best to do my best and talk about what I could with him. But he was a nice guy. He was very engaging. So you'll see, listeners. You'll see.
And by the way, you will discover that we spent a lot of time. We didn't dig into it too much. I don't know. I almost felt like he was reluctant to get into how many parallels that we had. But we were sort of living in a lot of the same places, sort of near the same time. I mean, I think he's younger than I am, but he definitely was sort of following a very similar track across the country that I followed, which I found very interesting.
Yeah, he kind of did.
I did but I wanted to ask him about some of our local haunts. If he went, because I am sure if he studied dance, whatever, he must have been in whatever arts thing at his high school growing up. And so I would imagine that he and his arty friends were doing the same late night nonsense at local diners that my friends were doing.
Probably.
So I kind of wanted to be like, so did you hang out at the Rose City Diner, Rosie's, across from the Castle Green? Or did you ever go to Tui's and, have their gigantic shakes? What was happening? But we didn't have a chance to get into it, despite how lengthy it was.
It happens. It's okay. There's always more opportunities, I'm sure, down the road to talk to him again.
That's right. He was a good guest. We could have him back, and I'm sure he'll write something else that we will want to talk to him about. But Romaine was has so much personality in this interview. I almost thought maybe you were hopped up on quite a bit of coffee.
I wasn't then, but I am now. In fact, I'm drinking my iced latte as we talk.
Well, it turns out
Quite tasty. Yeah.
that they did a recent study
Okay.
about the cities that drink the most coffee.
Okay, I am going to guess that it is
Okay.
going to be cities where, because I'm just trying to think about like why you would need to drink a lot of coffee. So it's going to be cities where there's a lot of like corporate work that's happening, like in
Okay.
office buildings, I feel like,
Okay.
and where people are really stressed out. And they need, because
Okay.
they're stressed and they need a lot of coffee to get through their stressful lives.
Uh-huh.
So I'm thinking cities like San
Okay, I'm ready.
Francisco, New
Wrong.
York,
Wrong.
Los Angeles.
Wrong.
Also cold places, Chicago.
Wrong.
Okay, I don't know anything then. What the fuck do I know? All right, where are all these places that they need coffee so fucking bad that are not stressful cities?
Okay, so I will go in reverse order. Number 5, which won't be at all a surprise when you hear it, is Seattle.
Oh, that makes sense because it is like it's the Starbucks, corporate home
It's
headquarters.
not just Starbucks. I think that the Pete's Coffee also
I think
started
you're
in
right.
Seattle.
You're right.
Yeah, so it's kind of
That
the
makes
Silicon
sense.
Valley of
Sure,
coffee.
Sure.
And I'm sure a lot of tourists, like people who come to Seattle to visit, are like, well, we have to have coffee. We're here in Seattle where coffee was born.
Yeah, that makes
Well,
sense.
Expensive coffee that costs more than a monthly subscription to the Derek and Romaine show. That's for sure.
That is for sure.
Oh,
Why do you think I
girl.
make my iced lattes at home now? It's too expensive to go to the old coffee shops and get your iced
right.
latte.
You
When you're
can't
paying
afford
$7 a fucking cup of coffee, that's
Yeah,
expensive.
You can't listen to Derek and Romaine and have a cup of coffee.
No, it's too
Too
expensive.
expensive. But don't drop Derek and Romaine. Make your
We're
coffee at home.
we're
Anyway,
a bargain by comparison to Starbucks.
we really are. We should, you can get a little extra whipped cream on your fancy coffee drink, and have a DNR Plus subscription for $12.95.
Sure.
But our base subscription, just plain old coffee, no frills, $6.95 a month.
Yeah,
All right,
that is
still.
less than you would pay for a venti latte at a Starbucks. I'm not even
Yeah.
joking. That's
No.
legit.
It's hilarious. And to think about how much 10 years ago we sweated like the price of what our subscription should be.
I know.
And I was like, oh, I don't know. $6.95 sounds like a lot of money. Now $6.95 sounds like a rounding
bargain.
error at Starbucks.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, okay. So Seattle, number 5.
Makes sense.
Yes. Number 4, Miami.
Okay. I mean, they're kind of bougie bitches. I can see that they spend a lot of money on coffee.
Well, it could be there's a lot of tourist trade there and a lot of sort
But
of
see, I see
outdoor.
them as more nightlife, less morning life.
I know, but you know
Huh.
what? Maybe since they're not doing as much cocaine as they used to, they have to really amp up the coffee.
Okay. I'll take that as a valid reason. All right. Miami. That's interesting. I would not have guessed that.
Yeah, but also they have a large, Caribbean, Central and South American population. Coffee is
True.
very popular there,
That's
where
true.
they
Good
grow
point.
it.
Good point.
So that might also be
Okay.
part of it too. Number 3, Long Beach, California.
Huh.
I agree.
Is it all the lesbians? Like, what is that about? I feel like there's a lot of lesbians in Long Beach. I don't know if that's actually
Maybe.
true or not.
I also think that this is about how much coffee is consumed, sort of per resident.
Mhm.
And maybe it just has a high number of coffee people there. I don't know.
Okay. Weird. Okay.
Yeah. I thought that was strange too. Of like not Los Angeles in general,
Right.
but Long Beach. But it could just be that the Los Angeles metro area is a high coffee thing, but
Mhm.
a sort of a lower population area has a higher percentage that kicked it up. Honestly, I don't know. Anyway, number 2, which does make sense, is Orlando, Florida.
Yeah, that's everybody getting ready to go into the parks, I think. And
Right.
they got to
And-
caffeinate before they have to deal with their children all day.
But also, again, this is a high tourist area.
Right.
So I am sure the
Yeah.
amount of coffee that the tourists are drinking
Yeah, it's a lot.
really bump up the overall per
Yeah.
person coffee consumption in Orlando.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then number 1 will not be a surprise to Derek and Romaine, who have done Pride in this town.
Mm.
Portland, Oregon.
Yeah. That does make sense. That's
my
like
God,
that's
girl.
like Seattle. I mean, the same kind of thing. Yeah, but also
Yeah, but like
Portland people.
I don't think I saw anyone during daylight hours that did not have a cup of coffee in their hand the whole time we were in Portland, Oregon.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just
It's
everywhere.
true.
And like before Pride, we went to Starbucks. Like, oh, we'll get a thick. The line was insane at the Starbucks, and then people were like pouring a little rum in their coffee in the morning. I was like, oh, okay, girl, they are serious. They really like to Irish things up around there.
Yeah, they kind of do. And who can blame them? I don't actually do that with my coffee ever, but I feel like maybe I should start.
You know, throw a little Bailey's in there.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
I don't like alcohol in my coffee. I'm kind of a coffee snob. You should know this about me.
I know.
There's a lot, and there's a lot about. I like very specific kinds of coffee. I'm very snobby when it comes to this kind of stuff, but whatever, it is what it is. But I do love good coffee. Like for instance, when we go to Hawaii, I was excited because I couldn't wait to go to the Kona coffee excursion.
Kona
Every time we
Joe's.
go to Kona Joe's, and I love it because 2 reasons. One, their coffee is really good. 2, because Kona coffee in particular is actually it's really good coffee. But also those mugs at Kona Joe's are my favorite coffee mugs ever. I love them, and I can't wait to have more. Every time I go, I'll get another one.
I think it's the climate, but it's also the volcanic soil.
Yes, it is. It's the volcanic soil is a big part of what makes the Kona coffee special, but it is basically a rainforest where Kona coffee is grown. But it is and it's kind of, you have to think of it as kind of like small batch coffee, because Kona is not a big place. And even though there are several Kona, coffee plantations there, farms there, there's not a lot. And so the coffee is on the more rare side because the quantity is limited. But also that volcanic soil definitely impacts the flavor of the coffee in a really unique kind of way. I love Kona coffee. I think Kona coffee is a really beautiful coffee, generally speaking.
I agree.
Yeah.
It is. It's lovely. That is kind of the best part. It's like, oh, and now we're going to give you a tour of our roasting plant. Like everyone's like, don't care. Get us to the barista at the end.
Yeah. I mean,
especially the second time around. It's like, all right, we already saw your roasting. Let's get ourselves roasted here, shall we?
Yeah. I will never go to Kona and not pick up some coffee to bring home. It's funny because the last time we were there, I went in and I asked for a very specific grind on the coffee that I wanted, and the guy's like, "How do you know that?" Because I was like, "Well, because I know the best way to get the best flavor out of this particular coffee is to serve it this way." And he goes, "Nobody knows that." He goes, "You must have worked in coffee at some point." And I'm like, "I did." So, by the way, for people who want to know.
Seeping from her pores.
I always get my coffee ground for a French press.
Okay.
And I serve my Kona coffee over a French press because with a French press, you're going to get more of the natural oils from the coffee when you make it. And it's just going to bring out more of that flavor profile that makes Kona coffee so special.
Okay, French press.
Mm-hmm. And so for a French press, it's kind of a thicker grind. Like the chunks are a little bit bigger than like if you were serving it in your regular coffee pot or, something like that.
Okay, Chunk from Fat Bear Week. Get your French press on.
By the way, that bear from Fat Bear Week was 1,200 pounds.
Bitch, they're big and fat.
That bear. So because I was thinking about it in like relationship to the bears that I see all the time. So
I love how you're still obsessed with this bear from months ago.
I know, from months ago. But okay, so bears where I live in New Jersey, right? They're like 500 pounds. Yeah, 500 pounds, maybe 700 pounds at the max. Like, I mean, 700.
How fat of a bear do you need?
700 pounds is a big fucking bear. A 1,200 pound bear has got to be gargantuan. And I guess it kind of makes me think they must be because my brother, Chuck, he went to Russia. I don't know if we've ever talked about this, but he went to Russia many, many years ago on a bear hunt. And he shot this giant grizzly bear. Giant. And then he fucking brought it home and he taxidermied it, and it stands in his living room. And this thing, when it's standing upright, is easily 12 feet tall. I mean, it is so gigantic. And I think it's got its like arms extended up. So it's just fucking huge. So I guess that must be the size of a 1,200-pound bear. I don't know. I feel like I need to call him and ask him how much that bear weighed that he shot, because I don't know. But I mean, a 1,200-pound bear, that's gargantuan.
No, it's not going to be 1,200 pounds at the end of the spring when it ends its
because
hibernation.
at the end of the spring, it's going to be skinny again.
Yeah, it's got to pack on the LBs.
No, I know how that works, Derek. I'm not a total idiot most of the time. Mostly. But that 1,200 pounds. Can you imagine weighing 1,200 fucking pounds? How many calories do you have to eat a day?
Yeah, some days I try to squeeze into my clothes, and I think maybe I do weigh 1,200 pounds.
How many fish do you think that bear has to eat a day to get to be 1,200 pounds?
Yeah, also, when we eat fish, it's like it helps us lose weight.
Right?
Like,
It doesn't make us fat.
It's so low in calories.
But I think about that. How many fish does it have to eat?
Yeah, it really is turning pure protein into fat.
Because up in Alaska, that's basically all they do is they just eat fish, right? Do they eat other shit? I don't even know. I don't know. Anyway, all right. Sorry, I just went off on a town and country, mostly country tangent. I apologize.
You can take the girl out of the country, but you can't take the country out of the girl.
Nope.
And coming up next, we'll find out whether Brian Schaefer is town or country. Maybe a little bit of both. It's coming up next here on Derek and Romaine.
More Derek and Romaine next.
Derek here along with Romaine, and joining us now, it is novelist Brian Schaefer. His new novel is Town and Country, available November 4th, everywhere fine books are sold. And since we don't know exactly when you're going to be listening to this, I will also let you know that he has a bunch of upcoming readings and signings at bookstores potentially near you. Mm-hmm. So be sure to check him out on the web for those upcoming dates. His website is brian-schaefer.com. His last name is spelled Schaefer, and he is on Instagram as It's Brian Schaefer. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. It's such a pleasure.
Absolutely. So this is your first novel. You're a journalist, and so you have been writing for quite some time, and we will definitely dig into that too. But what made you decide to turn to the world of novels?
Well, I've always been a big reader, and I actually got my master's in creative writing, but that was almost something of a fluke, just kind of an excuse to play around with writing. But simultaneously, I was working as a journalist, and that really took off and picked up and was very exciting and kept me busy for a long time. And then what really turned me into the novelist, as I think it did many, was the pandemic, where I had been writing a lot about performance, and so writing specifically about dance and theater. And suddenly that all went away. All the articles I had planned just kind of disappeared. I was regularly a scholar in residence at a dance festival, and the dance festival went away. And so I was looking at many months ahead of not knowing where to put my creative energy. And I'd always kind of felt an itch to tell my own stories, in addition to kind of helping tell other people's and describing their artistic journeys. And so I just kind of decided early on that I was going to make writing a novel my full-time job. And I just kind of sat down and committed to it.
So did you know all along what you were going to write about?
I had an idea, and actually I had a seed of it prior to the pandemic. So there used to be this thing called National Novel Writing Month. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It had been around for 30 years, and then it just folded earlier this year because of some AI controversy. But basically, it was this wonderful idea where anybody who wanted to write a novel, you basically take the month of November and you spit out 50,000 words. And so every day you have this metric, you write 2,000 words a day, and you're doing it with an online community. So you're getting these kind of daily affirmations and, all these online writing cheerleaders, and you feel like you're kind of part of something. And I just decided totally randomly in November 2019 that I wanted to flex my fiction flex my fiction again. And so it was actually like the first weekend was my brother's wedding. And so I was like literally at his wedding and was like the day of, I'm like, no, I'm hitting my 2,000 words. I started the day with that. And I just like spit out this story that, I'd been playing with in my mind and hadn't really developed at all, and just forced myself to move forward day after day, which for me was great because as a journalist, I'm like constantly self-editing. It's always about looking backwards. It's always about cutting. And the process like forced me to just like move forward, move forward. And then I was like, great, I did that. That was really fun. I'm not doing anything with this. It's such a mess. And my husband was like, oh, I want to read it. I want to see it. And so that, over the holidays, he read it and he was like, no, you should develop this. There's something here. And I said, okay, great, sure. I appreciate that. And I have all these articles lined up, but maybe I'll find a couple weeks in the summer to play around more. Then, of course, the articles wiped away and I still have this like really rough draft. And so that kind of like gave me the tools to like I had raw material to play with and mold when it all got going. And so the fact that it's coming out in November, it'll be start to finish, it'll be like a 6-year journey.
Wow. Now, I imagine that writing it and then taking a break away from it for a while, when you came back to it, I imagine it was almost like opening a gift that you'd kind of forgotten what was inside.
Yeah, exactly. And and some of that gift you're like, ooh, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's but there was enough in there that I was like, okay, that's interesting. Okay, that's not a horrible sentence. I'm really kind of, drawn to this character and would love to see what they do next. There was enough in there that I was like, okay, I can see where this goes.
So tell us a bit about what your novel is about.
Yeah, so Town and Country is set in a trendy rural town during a congressional race, and it follows a local family and a group of mostly wealthy gay newcomers. And it's the way that the race kind of collides them together and upends their relationships and test all of their loyalties.
Okay. There's a lot of that going on right now, I feel like.
Yeah, it's I wanted to it came in part from personal experience, from personal observation. My husband and I have for the past 12 years split our time between the Hudson Valley and New York City, and so I've been kind of dipping in and out of this kind of urban rural divide, and looking at kind of how the politics shape this really interesting region, which is largely agricultural, which is very economically diverse. But at the core of it, at the heart of it, is this super trendy, popular kind of vacation weekender town. And the population of second homeowners that has grown around there, the way that it shaped the politics. I was observing it and I was just fascinated. And especially, I started writing this kind of before the pandemic, but then the pandemic just like heightened it so much. And Hudson kind of emerged on all the top of the lists as the place that people in America were escaping to, to get away from cities. And so all of a sudden, it felt really relevant, the way that the real estate was shaping, the way that the town was evolving as a result of this economic influx. There's a big gay community up there, and I was really interested at kind of how we played a role in it.
It is interesting, the phenomenon that has been taking place. Obviously, you're addressing it here in your novel, but we've also seen it in other areas with how immigrant communities have transformed small towns, especially in sort of the deindustrialized, Northeast. So how do you feel as a participant yourself in this? How do you feel about these changes, and do you think that these new communities moving into these small towns, what do you feel about the changes that are taking place there? And is this sort of the solution to what has been happening to small town America over the last 100 years?
Yeah, I mean, as you said, this is kind of like has a long history of towns kind of constantly evolving based on the people who are moving in. And so all these towns, their identities are constantly changing. And, and I think one of the things that interested me in writing this was to really look critically at myself, at kind of our community, our group of friends, and kind of what our impact was, and then specifically what our responsibilities were kind of as part-time residents, what our responsibilities were to our neighbors, and kind of understanding the politics of the specific place that we're in, and also the difference between that and maybe what the politics are in the city or how they relate to national politics. And the fact that we vote up there, the fact that we are also shaping the direction, it makes an impact, and I think it's worth the scrutiny. And that's why I kind of wanted to look at this, to kind of step back and to imagine how we might look from the outside, and understand the fact that our presence, our impact, has consequences in terms of the money that comes into small towns. And there are, there are benefits and there are costs to that in a lot of ways. Hudson it's a really, really special town. And the fact that so much, that there's been so much energy, so much movement, so much resources that have poured into it, it's evolved in a way with, new businesses and opportunities for jobs, and a lot of attention to it that has kind of increased property values. But the cost of that is that for a lot of longtime residents and locals, sometimes they can be priced out of the things that we take for granted, like these great farm-to-table restaurants. Housing becomes a scarce resource. And so I wanted to explore this not from the kind of romanticized way that we tend to think about small towns, but to understand the dynamics and the way that we do have an impact, and we have a responsibility to kind of understand what our neighbors are facing. And for example, like one of the revelations for us was that as much as we enjoy all the great agriculture in the Hudson Valley, that for many residents there, Hudson is actually a food desert where they don't have access to the fresh, healthy produce. It's beyond their reach. And so in response to that, my husband and I have got involved in some efforts there, a community-supported grocery store that offers subsidized prices, and kind of other efforts to address this. But I think, this all kind of fed into the book in a way that I wanted to explore the complexity of it, and also the way that when you start becoming part of a community and you cross your social barriers, how that can kind of change the way you think, change your outlook, and actually some really beautiful relationships can emerge from that. And so that's all depicted in the novel, the way that people kind of unexpectedly develop these very sweet relationships with people that they wouldn't otherwise expect to.
Well, and that is one of the things that is, one of the positives of changing demographics is that you end up interacting with people that you would not otherwise interact with, whether it's big city gays now in a small town with rural straight people, or rural straight people with, big city gays. I remember when I lived in Southern California in the 90s, there was a town in the San Diego area.
Wait, I went to UC San Diego. So what town?
Oh, did you? Then
Yes.
You'll probably remember when this happened. There was like a community there that was like, gay people, please buy houses in our area. And it became kind of like a big news story of like, why are you trying to get gays here? And they were like, look, we got a lot of empty housing stock here, and we've seen the way that, gay people moving into areas have transformed them. And they were like,
For the better.
Please gay gentrify us. And part of it was like they wanted the funding for their school district. Like, we want gays to move here because they will not overwhelm our local school district, but they'll be paying property taxes that will help our school. So like they became this very desirable demographic to move into an area. And that was really the first time that I saw sort of straight people recognizing some of the value here. Although we've definitely seen over the last few decades that, gentrification has a real double-edged sword. Like it can transform and improve an area, but it also prices out longtime residents and can also wipe out some of the other community elements of culturally and community based that had been there before, because they also end up getting priced out, or the people who were a big part of the engine of that move away or die or are not replaced by people who are similarly culturally minded.
Yeah,
So it's complex.
completely. And that's exactly why it felt like a congressional race felt like, oh, this is such a great entry point because it's going to bring these issues to the fore. And also why I wanted to make sure that that part of the story was told from the perspective of local residents so that we kind of see the way that the impact is on them, and also that we're looking at the outside of what our impact is. And so I don't recommend this to any debut author, but I do have 6 point of view characters, which is kind of madness when I look back at it. But it is the way that it evolved, and it's also the way that I was able to address all these complexities because each person is going to have a different experience with this evolution. And so, in a lot of ways, it felt like the only way you could do it is to look at it from so many angles.
Wow.
But don't you think that as a journalist, that is also part of what is informing you here as a novelist? Because as a journalist, you do need to incorporate different viewpoints into any situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also, because it's the only way I kind of know how to do it, is I approached it journalistically. And so I kind of set out, okay, who am I going to talk to? Where am I going to go? So I actually sat down and had breakfast with our former Republican congressman in our district and had a great conversation about him and his experience and his perspective. And then I, met with dairy farmers and, went to, did cow milking, and I watched church sermons, and I I went to a drug recovery, I basically learned how to administer Narcan. So I kind of went to a
Wow.
for that, and then just spent a lot of time driving around the district. It was a very, very large district, and just kind of sitting at as many bars as I could, talking to bartenders, over listening conversations, just getting a sense of, okay, what am I not listening, hearing? How do I burst out of my bubble, and use my journalism, and use the research to kind of figure out what I haven't been seeing, in the time that I've lived here, and bringing all that into the narrative as well.
Okay, that's a lot of research for a novel.
Yeah, I mean, but it's also so fun. I mean,
I could see
by the
that.
research, and it's also, I mean, I think for me it's comforting, right? Because sometimes to make up somebody's perspective, to put words into their mouth, I mean, that's a really bold thing to do, and I think it's it's the beauty of fiction, and it's also, it gives us access to so many different viewpoints. But you want to do that well, you want to do it responsibly, you want it to feel like it's coming from a place that feels organic to who you're depicting and who you're representing. And so I just wanted to make sure to be in conversation with as many different people as I could to make sure that the voices that I was recreating sounded true to them.
Wow. I like
Author Brian Schaefer is with us, and his debut novel is Town and Country. Now, I would like to ask you about San Diego, because San Diego is very different from New York. So, what did you love about San Diego? Is there anything about San Diego that you miss, and why did you come to New York and then stay?
Yes, San Diego. San Diego was an amazing experience. So I grew up in Pasadena, California. So spent all my life there. Then went to UC San Diego, and basically and was there for 10 years. So I spent 5 years at UCSD, because it took me 5 years to finish. Because at the very last minute, I added a second major in dance, which was very unexpected. And so I was there, and I lived in so many different places. Of course, I lived on campus the first few years, but then I was off campus in La Jolla, and then I was in Claremont, and then I was in Hillcrest, and I was in North Park, and University Heights. So I got the whole lay of the land there. And it's just, every single neighborhood there is really fun and really special. I had such an amazing group of friends. Places like Balboa Park, to be so close to the bay, it just has everything. And I had a great job back at the university working in the performing arts program. So I would help bring international artists to campus. So I had a really kind of ideal life there, but also felt that after 10 years, I needed to, kind of go out into the world and kind of see what else it could offer me. And I moved to New York for my husband. We had been doing long distance. We had spent all of 1 month together in person by the time I made that move, and I showed up with 2 suitcases, and I moved in, and that was 12 years ago. And
Wow.
Oh, it's very lesbian of you.
Super lesbian of you.
yes,
I didn't even know gay guys were capable of doing this kind of lesbianism.
apparently we are. And I mean, no, I appreciate it. I mean, if you didn't offer the model, then I may not have known it'd be possible and doable, but it is.
Now, I went to high school in Alhambra, so I'm very familiar with the area, such as you. I mean, I know Ritzy San Marino was between us, but you know, I'm very familiar with that. And then I also lived and worked in San Diego for a while. That was a great time. And it is an incredible place. But I love it here in New York. I love the seasons. That was really like one of the big things that I, miss out on in California.
I mean, there's something like intrinsic about it where like even without knowing any difference, like even when I was living there, I had this sense that I was like missing a kind of rhythm to the year, that I felt a little like oppressed by the constant sun. And maybe that's just kind of the reader and the writer in me that wants to be cozy a little bit and wants to kind of have an excuse to hibernate. But it was like too much sun. And I'm so happy in New York with the seasons. My husband was like terrified that I was going to hate winter and flee immediately. And he bought me like a really, really good coat and did everything he could to make sure that I was comfortable. But I love the seasons. I love winter. I'm very happy to have the mix of all four.
Yeah, it was always weird being in Southern California. Like there'd be a news story about a blizzard, and you'd be like, "Oh, right, it's still winter somewhere." Like you forget.
I
like
look
that
forward
winter
to that myself, forgetting about winter.
So speaking of your husband, I want to talk about your experience writing for the New York Times because you have been writing for the New York Times for quite some time, and I am curious about your experience as a journalist because obviously. The New York Times, certainly here in the United States, is the gold standard for, print journalism. And so, as a journalist, how important or exciting was it for you to actually write for the New York Times for the first time? And were you at all intimidated because the New York Times has a very specific legacy style to its writing and journalism? So, what was the pressure like for you, and what was the excitement level for you when you first wrote for the Times?
I mean, it was definitely a bit of disbelief and definitely a sense of like I got away with something. Like I shouldn't have been able to do this, but like somehow I like snuck in. And I mean, this is going to sound really, really insane, but the first article that I wrote for the New York Times was the first article that I ever wrote for a newspaper, which is madness. But the reason it happened is because of my background in dance. And so, I had a degree in dance in San Diego. I did write for a few online publications in San Diego about dance, and then I became a member of the Dance Critics Association, and as part of that association, there was a moment when I was also on the board of it. And the dance critic for the New York Times was also former dance critic Alistair Macaulay was also part of the also part of the DCA. So I built a relationship with him. And when I had an idea for an article, I said, "Hey, who would I send this to?" And he connected me with the dance editor who accepted the pitch. And all of a sudden, I had an article in the New York Times where I absolutely did not belong. But it was like dance was my like Trojan horse because nobody, so few people write about it. But they are looking for coverage. And so the fact that I brought them an idea that they were interested in, and that's kind of what I learned what it's about. I've always been a freelancer for them. I've never been on staff, but I've been freelancing for them for 15 years now.
Wow.
And it's all about the art. It's all about the idea. If you find them an interesting story that nobody else has told, they're going to want it. And I had faith in kind of the writing skills that I had developed, and also knew that they were going to make sure that it was going to fit all of their standards. And my early articles were certainly edited very, very, very well. But I actually still have on my desktop. I'm looking at it right now. the contract that I signed when I wrote that first article, and it stays up on my desktop as a reminder of the impossible thing that I just never could have imagined that came true. And it's kind of made me always think, like, you know what, it's anything could happen, like anything.
I'm sensing a theme with you.
Uh-oh.
You have this like impossible thing, and you're like, but I could do that. Let me just do that, and then it happens.
Somehow it happens. I guess what's the theme? The theme is that I just like leap first, right?
Yeah.
I'm the person who, I don't dip my toe. I just like, I jump like right into the deep end. Like literally when I go to a pool, I go straight in the deep end. Don't care how cold it is. I'll adjust. It'll be fine. What's the worst that can happen? But it takes practice. I think all these things, like doing it again and again, you kind of like, you maintain a muscle of like, okay, well, I'll just try it and we'll see.
I wish everyone was like that. There's so many people that are afraid to try that. They're scared.
Yeah, it's scary. It is scary. And I have to fight that fear. I'm not fearless. I like feel the fear and I face the fear, and sometimes it like prevents me. Like sometimes it's like, nope, that feels too far. That feels too uncomfortable. But more often than not, I try and force myself into uncomfortable situations.
And it's obviously been very successful for you.
Yeah, and it's been fun.
Yeah.
I'll say that too. It's fun.
Now, one of the things that you have written for with the Times is the dance listings, which is, various, dance performances that will be taking place across the city for people to check out. And so for a lot of our listeners are, all over the U.S. and Canada and around the world. But they often come to New York, and a lot of tourists who come to New York just think, Broadway, Times Square, maybe a museum, but the 9/11 memorial. They have a somewhat limited tourist view of New York. So for our listeners who do come to New York regularly, who might want to see new things, what can you tell people about the world of dance in New York City, and what is unique about it? Because obviously you've experienced it firsthand in San Diego and other parts of the country. So give us your best 8 bars on the New York City dance scene.
I mean, the New York City dancing it's incredible. I mean, the range in terms of the styles and just the caliber of performances that are here. So you can go to Lincoln Center, you can go to the Koch Theater, which is, I think, one of the most beautiful theaters in New York, and you can see the New York City Ballet, and it is as thrilling as any theatrical production that you'll see on Broadway. Just gorgeous dancing, gorgeous music, in a gorgeous space. And then you can also head down. You can go, my neighborhood theater is the Joyce Theater in Chelsea. It's been around forever. And they bring in all these, both New York and American and international companies. And it's just constant dance programming. You can see amazing tap there. You can see amazing contemporary hip hop, classical Indian. I mean, the variety is just amazing. New York City Center, they're bringing next week the Paris Opera Ballet, which never comes, and like here it is right in New York City. The Brooklyn Academy of Music has an incredible Next Wave Festival, bringing all these exciting new artists from around the world. So it's really a thrilling kind of tapestry of dance, and definitely worth looking into the listings and seeing what's playing when you're in town.
I think you got Derek very excited when you said tapping.
Yeah. There's amazing tap in New York. Yeah.
Derek, did you even know that?
I do know there is amazing tap in New York because, a lot of tap dancers, there's not a lot of work for them in other places. So they tend to come to New York. If you want to get employed as a tap dancer, like, this is kind of a good place for that. I'm sure every day they're like, will today be the day there's a revival of 42nd Street so I can tap my heart out? Although I'm pretty convinced there's one cast suicide a week during 42nd Street, just because the noise of the tapping must be so intense. I cannot even imagine.
That show is such a thrill. They need to bring that back. I'll always take a 42nd Street.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised how long it's been since we've had a revival of that show, because it is a real crowd pleaser, and it's fun and whatever. Like the tapping is fun, and it's the show where they do the curtain call, and then they're like, "How about 10 more minutes of tapping?" And you're like, "Great, this is what I came for."
That's all I want. Yes, exactly.
It's really fun. But there is dance in other places. Romaine is relocated to Texas, which is part of why we're recording this, because it'll be airing while Romaine is in the midst of her move. And you did write an article about dance in Houston. So just because Romaine is moving to Texas does not mean that there will be no arts, right?
Oh, I was going to say the Houston dancing, the Houston Ballet is incredible. And this festival that I wrote about, Dance Salad, was actually, I mean, they brought these incredible companies from all over the world, but it was also this like very kind of like personally, it was a pivotal moment in my dance writing journey. And it actually, the story of how I first got there was I'd been in this long relationship. We had broken up. It was on amicable terms, and I was supposed to go see my now ex that weekend. And at the very last minute, he kind of like ghosted me, and I was really devastated, and I didn't know what to do. And I had read this like very, very small description in Dance Magazine about the Dance Salad Festival in Houston. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to get on a plane. I'm just going to go to this festival. I'm just going to heal myself with dance. And I showed up at this festival. And first of all, I met one of the dancers there at a reception, and we had a very fun fling for the weekend. So that already
Nice.
all worthwhile. But then second, I met the editor of Dance Magazine. I introduced myself and I said, a piece in your magazine is the reason that I'm here. And then I just kind of took it upon myself to write up a little review of the festival, and I sent it to her, and she invited me to start contributing to the magazine. And so that was some of my early dance writing.
That's awesome.
Wow. Look at that. See, Romaine.
See, he jumped in feet first, Derek, and look what
I
happened.
know.
Good things.
And in Texas.
In
is
Texas.
where,
Yeah, I have to be
full-
honest. I have been a little surprised to hear about how much of an art scene there is in Texas, because I did not predict that or see that as something that I would find there. But I'm learning more and more, and it seems like there is a very healthy art scene in the state of Texas, which is awesome.
Yeah, very much.
Now, I do want to ask you about two other areas of the New York Times you've written for that are like famous sections of the New York Times. So first is the obituaries. And I know that a lot of people who are not New York Times readers don't know this, but like, talk about your crown jewel. Like the obituary section of the New York Times is very, very highly regarded. And you did write an obituary for the New York Times for a dancer. So I'm curious, as a journalist, the New York Times has its own style, but also the obituary section also has a very specific writing style. So talk about your experience of writing an obituary for the New York Times.
Yeah, it was actually, and I can say that it was thrilling. I can talk about it in good terms because the person that I wrote about lived to a very old, robust age and had a wonderful life. And so it wasn't a kind of a tragedy or anything, in which case I would feel very bad about talking about my positive experience. But well before that, I'd been reading the obituaries forever. I think it is one of the most fascinating sections of the newspaper. Anybody who overlooks them or thinks that it's too macabre or a little depressing, occasionally it can be if somebody meets an untimely end. But for the most part, these are the most interesting people in the world, some of whom you've heard of, some of whom you haven't, who have led the most fascinating lives. And to see kind of the impacts that they made and kind of how they get there, it really is kind of worth a read. And you're right, it's a completely different style, which is really fun. I love writing for publications that require different voices. And I've written for the New Yorker, and that has its own like very, very different voice. But being able to contribute an obituary, it took a very different kind of research because I had to reach out to the family, and luckily they were very forthcoming and they shared a lot. And this person was very loved, and they were very excited to be able to celebrate her in the Times, and so they provided a lot of great information. But that's very sensitive. And that when you're writing, anytime I write an article, I want to do justice to the people I'm profiling and hope that they feel well represented and honestly represented. But especially when you're talking about somebody who recently passed and their family is experiencing a lot of pain, you want to be extra sensitive. You want to make sure you get everything right. You really don't want a correction on an obituary. And so I took a lot of time with it, but it was also to then kind of be able to you feel connected to the person that you write about. You learn their history, you learn their biography, you're sharing with their family in this moment of passing. So it was a very special experience and unlike anything I had written before.
What do
Now,
you think makes a good obituary? Like, what goes into it that makes it stand out, makes it excellent?
I mean, I think it's like capturing the essence of the person, and so you're not just saying like what they did, but like through either through their writings or previous interviews or the conversations that we have with their family, that you're getting a sense of their personality. And so the woman that I wrote about was like really a go-getter, and she was kind of a pioneer, and there was like a stubborn side to her. And so to be able to discover that, to be able to like try and convey that to people. And then also you have to have like a really good grasp of what their impact was. Like, how did they shape their field? How did they change their art form? What was their impact? And how did that influence people down the line? And so it's not just a question of somebody telling you, oh, they did this, this, and this. You have to like understand the whole world that they lived in to understand how they changed it.
so my question about the obituary, because this is as a New York Times obituary reader,
He reads them
like,
all.
I'm going, the thing that is like really important to me is most of the obituaries end with a quote. And sometimes it's a quote from the deceased that really sort of sums up their life. And sometimes, as in the case with your obituary, it's other people who are giving information about that person in their life. So when you knew you were going to be working on this obituary, how much did you sweat that last quote?
I mean, the last quote is always, I mean, we call it the kicker in journalism. It's the last line of the article, and it's the thing that just kind of puts a button on it, and it kind of sums it up, or it gives that like last kind of like umph to, either the theme or the personality. And many a times an editor will come back to me and say like, okay, but we need a better kicker on this.
Right.
So you're always sweating it. You're always kind of like trying to figure it out. Sometimes you stumble upon something. Even in my interview, I'll be conducting an interview and somebody will like say something, and in my head I'll just be like, that's my kicker, like that's going to end the article. And to have that kind of like structure, to understand, okay, this is what I'm working towards because this somehow brings it all together, that's obviously a gem. I don't remember exactly how I ended this particular obituary, but I know one of the last things about it, I think this was at the end. I don't recall, but the extraordinary thing about the person that I wrote about is that her twin brother died the exact same day on the other side of the world. Like they were both like in their 90s and they died on the same day, thousands of miles apart. Is crazy.
What?
I know.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Crazy.
Yeah, that is how it ends. It's
Like, it
a
gives me
quote from another
chills.
family member about like their last conversation.
Yeah.
And their connection before they died. And so, yeah, like that's the sort of, obviously in this case, she was a 94-year-old dancer who had a long history in dance. She had trained under Martha Graham, who's sort of like one of the great figures of modern 20th century dance. And so, you have this figure who lived a long life, had this long connection to the history of modern dance in the world. But then, at the end, you bring it back to who they are as a person, and in this case, a twin who was very close, even though they spent decades apart, was still very, very close to their twin right to the end. So, so this is the part about the obituaries where you really sort of learn, about basically the person behind the headline, which I think is ultimately what these obituaries are really great for.
Yeah, exactly.
It's wonderful. All right. And then finally, I have to ask you on the New York Times thing, and then I want to ask you about another writing thing, and then we'll wrap up. Okay. So now I want to ask you about one of the other sort of great sections of the New York Times, a Sunday tradition, the weddings section, because you have what I have to assume is a rare distinction of writing about your own wedding in the New York Times. So how did that come about?
That came about at the encouragement of my husband, who was, who really from the beginning, when we came up with this very unconventional idea for our wedding, and I'll describe it briefly. So basically, when we decided to get married, which, we did basically because there was a period in my family where my brother got engaged, three of my cousins got engaged. There was going to be this whole line of weddings, and we just didn't want to get in line. We didn't want to wait. And so we said, okay, let's just like do this really fast. Let's like jump to the front and just have a very small wedding and get it over with, and then we can go celebrate everybody else's. And my husband was like, I don't want a big wedding. He just doesn't love being with tons of people. It's just overwhelming. He has no fun with it. And I didn't want to have a wedding that he wasn't also having fun. So we talked about it and we came up with this idea that, okay, what if we did something like a deconstructed reception, where instead of 150 people in one room in one night, we broke it down. So, everybody's sitting at a 10-person table and we're sitting with them. So we did 12 separate dinners spread over 6 months, where we basically broke it down and had these mini receptions with all of our different friends and celebrated our wedding that way, in addition to, a ceremony with our immediate family. So we came up with this idea. It was really fun. And he said, well, you have to write about it for the Times. They would love this. This is so great. It's perfect for the wedding section. And I resisted because I'm like, no, I'm a serious journalist. I contribute to the Times as a reporter. I've been writing for them for like a decade at this point. Like, I'm not going to suddenly like celebrate my own wedding. But the more that we talked about it, the more people were excited about it, the more people who heard about it wanted to learn more, wanted to learn how we pulled it off, wanted to learn how it felt. And so I said, okay, I'll send them a note. I'll send the wedding editor a pitch and just kind of see what they say. And it was the fastest story I've ever had accepted. I wrote the email, and I think within 5 minutes, she wrote back and she was like, yes, absolutely.
Dang.
So that's how the article came about.
I mean, I would imagine with the wedding section is that they're always really looking for what can be new and fresh and unique, because I mean weddings often are an expression of the people who are getting married, and that's certainly the case with you. You guys were making choices specifically around your own life and personality, and I'm sure that that's ultimately what the weddings editor is looking for, like not the person who invented the idea of putting disposable cameras on tables at the reception, but how is this wedding a reflection of how these two met, or what their life is together, or their family circumstances, or whatever it is. So I would imagine that, yes, I'm sure that was a fast yes, because like, all right, this is very different, this is new for us, but also, I mean, for people reading the wedding section, like you can pick up some really good ideas.
Yeah, we got incredible response. People were very excited about the idea, and we got really lovely messages, and people said, oh, I'm gonna try this, or I'm gonna do this for my 50th birthday, because this is a way to have like a more intimate experience. And so it was very well received. And then afterwards, the wedding editor was like, you're welcome to write for us anytime, like pitch stories. And I was like, well, I think I'm just going to get married once, hopefully. So I don't have anything for you at the moment. And I don't think I'm going to start following the wedding beat. But it was a pleasure to write for. And people, friends in my past who have never once probably seen one of my dance articles were coming out of the blue, just being like, oh my God, I saw you in the wedding section, as if it was the first thing I ever wrote for the Time.
Now that's very exciting. And then finally, you are promoting your novel, Town and Country. And I did notice that earlier this year, you wrote an article for Town and Country magazine. So how meta was that?
It was such a goal of mine, and I've been circling, been wanting to write for that magazine for a while. And especially when we came up with the title, which was very hard. I went through so many titles. It was really the hardest part of writing the book. I went through basically a different title for almost every draft that I did. And at like the last minute, when the publisher was like, okay, we need a title now because we need to design this cover, we need to get into production, my agents, my editor, we were all like racking our brains. And at the very last minute, my agent said, what about Town and Country? And kind of immediately it made sense, because of course your first association is this like luxury lifestyle magazine. And so it has kind of all the decadence, what we were talking about earlier, the kind of romanticization of, this rural small town life and, in general. And so of course there's like that element of it. And then you break it down and you think, okay, but it's actually about this relationship between the town and the country and kind of the local and the national. And the fact that the title kind of contains all of that complexity, and still has that kind of fun wink nod to this publication that, that everybody knows. That's kind of why it felt like the perfect thing. And of course, the first thing I did was write to my friend who's an editor at Town and Country and say, "You're not going to believe this. This is the title. Can't wait to work with you guys." And it was, and they actually reached out to me in the spring to write an article on Etoile, which was the short-lived Amazon Prime series on the ballet world. But we also since have there will be some some stuff book related that's coming out in their upcoming issues, because they're also very excited to have like a literary association now.
Nice.
That's very fun. It reminds me of the first time I went to McCall, Idaho, and they used the same font as the magazine, and I was like gaying out all over the place. Like, very exciting.
That does not surprise me.
I think all the gays that go to McCall, Idaho, which I strongly recommend, it's beautiful there, will have the same reaction. Well, gays of a certain age, I should say, because that magazine's been gone a long time. Okay. Well, Brian, wonderful to chat with you here. Congratulations on your debut novel. Are you already working on a second one, or are you going to put your head down for the next 6 years and then come back up?
No, it was actually the best advice that I got was start working on the next one now, so that regardless of what happens with this, whether, whether it meets expectations or not, whether, I'm disappointed or thrilled with the reception, like it doesn't matter, that I already have a project to turn to. And I actually already got a month-long writing residency in Key West in March. And so I will be spending the month there working on the next thing.
All right, there you go.
That sounds exciting and fun. What a horrible place to have to spend a month. Oh, yes. No.
And as much as we love the seasons, March in Florida is not the worst idea that ever happened to any New Yorker. All right.
As much as we love the seasons, March is my least favorite month in New York, I would say.
We try to explain to people all the time that March is like the emotional breaking point for people and for New Yorkers.
He's not wrong.
Like it starts to feel good, and then you have like that one last snow, and you're like, I will kill something. Like, I cannot deal with this. Like this, I thought we were turning a corner, and we have not. And you could just see how on edge New Yorkers are. It is a rough time here.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. So yeah, heading out of town.
Good
all right, good. Smart idea. Our thanks to Brian Schaefer for being with us. Be sure to pick up his new novel, Town and Country. It's published on November 4th. It's available everywhere fine books are sold. And he will be touring for the book, doing signings and readings. So go to his website, brian-schaefer.com, to see his upcoming dates. Schaefer is how you spell his last name. And he's also on Instagram. You can follow him there. Where he also is promoting his upcoming dates. It's Brian Schaefer. Thanks for being with us, Brian.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure.
Absolutely. You're listening to Derek and Romaine. Well, there you have it. The end of another perfect episode of Derek and Romaine. And if you want more great fun, go to dnrstudios.com and subscribe to get our show every day. And don't forget, for DNR Plus subscribers, you can use the DNR Cast app for iPhone, available now in the App Store.